excited for my name is Alyssa Wright. I'm the CEO and principal of Wright Collective. We are a community of consultants focused on mobilizing resources and driving change for nonprofits and a lot of family offices in philanthropy. We are so excited in our, what we like to call our catalytic consultant role, to offer different types of content to you that feel relevant and help you meet the moment. And I feel really lucky and grateful today that we get to hear from one of our newer members to the team. Sara's been a member of the collective for, I think, coming up on her first year anniversary this quarter, and really has been stewarding a lot of our work around marketing and communications with our clients, with our nonprofit clients. So if you're going into this year thinking about storytelling and brand and identity, you're going to get a lot out of today's conversation. Before we dive into the specific agenda, a couple housekeeping rules. So we will keep everyone on mute for the main presentation. So thank you for doing that. If you have any questions or comments or thoughts, please pepper them into the chat. I'll be managing the chat while Sara shares today the presentation and the workshop with you all. And we also just ask that we, make sure that we are creating an inclusive space and community for everyone who is participating. So please do feel free as we go throughout today's presentation, again, to ask questions, and we will have some time at the end for Q&A. We know there are many diverse organizations here today of size and scale and mission and geography, so thank you for being with us. And with that, I will hand it over to my colleague, Sara Janjigian Trifiro, who will take us into today's presentation. Here, take it away, Sara.
Hi, everybody. Thank you all for being here. I'm going to share my screen and get the presentation going. Give me a second. I hope you all are doing well. So one of my goals for 2025 is not to say guys. So the goal for today is that I get through this without saying guys. Fingers crossed. I'm not sure it's going to happen, but we're going to try. So thank you, Alyssa. I'm really excited to be here today and to talk about marketing. It's obviously one of my favorite subject matters. We're going to start here in the chat. Let me get my chat going. If everyone could put their name, their pronoun, their organization, and location, and most importantly, what your role is in the organization. And what I mean by that, if you could pick one of these bullets, are you marketing? Are you development? Are you marketing and development? Are you other? Are you other and marketing? Because this will help me really see what where you all are in your organizations. I know we have a diverse group of organizations here, some that are bigger with bigger marketing departments, some that are small with no marketing department. That is totally fine. And that is why we're here today. So go ahead. And while we do that, I just want to pull up my chat so I can watch along with some of you. So put your information in the chat. Thank you. I see them coming in. So marketing and development, marketing and development, marketing and development, development, marketing and development. So yes, and that's what I was expecting, is a lot of marketing and development. As we go through this, I want you to try and compartmentalize the marketing into one side and the development into the other. I think it'll be helpful as we go through this. Excuse me. Okay, agenda. Welcome and hello. In introductions, we're going to do an introduction of me in a second, to the life of a marketer today, what a marketer goes through, what is nonprofit marketing, the marketing breakdown, what that looks like, the Google effect, creating a marketing calendar, and some quick tips. And I'm going to try and stay on track. So here we go. Again, my name is Sara Janjigian Trifiro. If you can't say the whole thing, you can just say Sara JT. I'm totally fine with that, or just Sara is fine too. I have 30 years of marketing experience. I started right out of college in nonprofits, 30 years of marketing experience in nonprofits. I started right out of college as a core member at City Year Boston, where I learned firsthand about stewardship and corporate sponsorship, how to run a gala, how to bring a donor through the process. Back then, 30 years ago, they were really sort of writing the book on how to do this, and they still are today. And so I feel blessed that I was trained by the best. And from there, I went through many different marketing positions, both in nonprofit and for-profit. When I was in for-profit, I spent a lot of time working with an accounting firm and focusing on finance and governance for nonprofits. We'll get into why that's important in a second. But when I'm not doing this work that I love with Alyssa and the team, I'm probably in New Hampshire skiing or at the ocean or gardening. So you can find me in any of those iterations or with my two twin 16-year-olds. So over the course of my 30 years, I found that in the middle of it, I started to have some pretty significant anxiety, and I wasn't sure what was happening. Here's marketing. I get the best job in the world. I get to be creative and make things and do things with lots of creative people. And I was really starting to struggle as to why I was having anxiety. And this is what would happen. I'd walk into an accountant's office. We'd start to have a conversation about my to-do list that I was bringing them that day. And then they would stop me and say, "Hey, Sara, I'm so glad you're here. I have a son, he's 15 years old, and he's been doing social media and he's doing this stuff. He's getting lots of followers. We need to do this." And my anxiety go through the roof. And I'd be like, why am I not doing that? What's going on? I'm the professional in the room. And over a course of a couple of years, this kept happening all the time. And I realized a couple of things. First of all, that everybody is a marketer and we all have great ideas. And marketing is the place where we want to really encourage those ideas, because I don't have all the great ideas. It's Alyssa might have good ideas one day, Erin another, Andrea another, and I need to be the person who collects those ideas. The other thing I realized was that I don't have to be acting on them right away. And so I learned very quickly that I didn't go into the accountant's office and say to the accountant, "Hey, Mr. Accountant, I know how to do your accounting work better." But that's because I'm not an accountant and everybody's a marketer. So I learned a couple of things to help me through this process, and I'm hopeful that if I share them with you today, they will help you as well. So first of all, let's talk about the role of a marketer. The role of a marketer is to develop a strategy, to manage that strategy, and to protect that strategy. And we can be flexible, but truthfully, it's really in these three buckets. I want to take a step back and look at some job descriptions. These are real job descriptions that I pulled off of the web. And one of them, actually the one to the left, is from one of our clients. So this is a development manager. The one on the right is for a nonprofit marketing and communications manager. This job description, by the way, goes on and on and on and on. The list is long. And I bring this to your attention to really emphasize the fact that when we look at marketing, it's this big bucket and we dump a ton of stuff into it. It's media relationships, it's events, it's graphic design, it's writing, it's CRM, and there's crossover between what the development team is doing and what the marketing team is doing, or in your own head, if you're split, what you do in this bucket and what you do in that bucket. But when it comes to marketing, there's a lot of very different skill sets that we as generalist marketers, and that's what I would call myself as a generalist marketer, are doing. And it's hard, as we know, as we learn more about what the brain does, to continually change those activities. And truthfully, it's hard to get stuff done. So I bring this to your attention just to make sure that we're very clear that we ask a lot of our marketing team, whether it's half of you or it's the human that you give that role. And one of the ways that I started to really manage these bombarding of people's really good ideas is to name it. And I named it the shiny object syndrome. And really just to call it what it is. A shiny object syndrome is when Alyssa calls me up at 9 a.m. and says, Sarah, we need to do a client event. It's going to happen in March. These are the things. Let's do this. And I say, yes, Alyssa, great idea. I love this idea. So shiny objects can be new marketing tools, chasing content that someone really liked, new logos. We need a new logo. What other organizations are doing? Have you seen what they're doing? And my favorite is what one donor wants. This one, we actually have this conversation all the time. We had it yesterday. One donor wants to do a backpack thing or a shenanigan, and all of a sudden you're chasing that and you're not focused on your to-do list and your agenda. So what I have learned to do is to first acknowledge, Alyssa, that's a great idea. I really love that idea. Thank you. And take a moment to evaluate the idea. Is it urgent and important? If it's urgent and important, then we take a look at today's agenda, we reevaluate, and then we focus on that thing. For instance, if you have constituents in LA right now that are affected by what's going on, then change your agenda and make sure you're communicating with them. Absolutely. But if it's just a great idea, then what I usually say is, thank you, Alyssa. I love this idea. Remember our priorities for January are this, and this. So I'm going to complete these things. But on the 1st of February, I'm going to put this on our big list, our big to-do list, and we can reevaluate all of February's idea. This acknowledges Alyssa and her idea. She feels like a warm hug, and I can focus on my priorities and get the things I need to do done. So this is a big thing that I see that marketers deal with all the time. Next, what is marketing, nonprofit marketing and communication? So it's all the things on the list, but I was hoping that maybe we could take a moment and write down in the chat some of the things you guys think fall into this bucket. Let's see what you guys have to say in the chat. Sharing the mission. Yeah, absolutely, Brittany. Social media, newsletters. Yeah, web content. Consistency of messaging. That's a very important one. It's storytelling. It's annual reports. Yes, absolutely. Brand awareness. Reaching different audiences. I love these. Yeah. It's a lot of things. So how do we take a moment to really figure out what is important and how to do something that makes great change? A lot of times when we talk to clients, what we find is that they say, I don't really know what our marketing is doing. I don't know what we're achieving. And that, I mean, that's a consistent message that we're getting. And it's true. It's not unlike what I see in small organizations that are not nonprofits as well. So you're not alone. What I think is helpful is when we help organizations really figure out what they want to do for the year and pick those things and stick with them. We can add some things in there, but pick and stick and move forward. So let me go back here. Let's talk about the marketing progression. Marketing So not solicitations. And I really want you guys to think about all of the stuff that you do that are solicitations and asks, and bifurcate them out, put them to the side right now, and think about what is the marketing that you do. Marketing creates community. It's all these things. It's updating members. It's exciting and engaging. It's the what and the why and the credentializing. It's acquiring new followers. It's engaging new followers and retaining new followers. And the way I like to think about it is that if you were a storefront and you acquire someone to walk into the door. So they walk in and they say, oh, yeah, okay, this is cool. I might want to buy one of these things. And maybe you engage them and they make a first donation. So somehow they make that first donation. Now you've engaged them. Then we move to retain, and that is a longer term journey. The credentializing of this means that along the journey at every point that they get the same message. So it's that consistency of message that you guys are talking about in the notes. Development is, and again, this is a marketing conversation, not a development conversation. So we're just going to put marketing and development underneath, and that's the solicitations, the campaigns. It could be events. And yes, there's a lot of crossover in both, but those are the asks. The marketing is the engagement. And all of this is in the goal of getting gifts. So what is the marketing breakdown? I find for nonprofit organizations, marketing falls into three big buckets. It's service and impact, it's donor messages, and expertise. Service and impact are your programs, your events, and your service. So it's if you give legal services, it's, come join this program where you're going to learn about X, Y, and Z. If you teach swimming lessons, it's the schedule of the swimming lessons, the events. It could be, how to plant a tree. It's whatever you're doing that's really at the core of who you are. The second, and this is the one I think we don't have enough time to really focus on, but is one of the most important, is our expertise and leadership in the world. And what I have found over the years is that our leaders, the executive directors and the clinicians, whoever it is that's really leading the service part of the program, you all really know what you're doing better than anyone else. Most recently, I was working with a client and we were looking for a speaker, and we were looking high and low to have a speaker come and talk about loneliness in Maine. And then after a while, the board chair came to me and said, why are we not asking the CEO to speak? And I said, you're absolutely right. She's the expert. She's been working with the elderly and senior people in Maine for 40 years. She's the one that knows what she's talking about. She's the one we need to bring to the table. And we did, and it was great. And that was the right thing to do. But we forget that we're the experts. I think we're a humble group. And so we're not always able to we're not always willing to bring ourselves forward, but it's really important that we highlight the leaders that we are. And that's advocacy and policy. That could be speaking. So the next part is the donor messages, not solicitations. These are ways to engage donors. And I really think about it as education. It's really important that we educate our constituents because, again, we're experts. We know what we're talking about. Let's get out there and tell them. I put short videos first. I know a lot of you are not doing video. That's okay. Articles, it could be just quotes. It could be a quick reminder of something that's important. And it's storytelling and case studies. What I usually find when we look at the marketing breakdown of an organization is it looks a little bit more like this. I don't know if this resonates with any of you, but the services really takes up the vast majority of the bandwidth of marketing. The donor messages might take a little bit more of that space too. Expertise, depending on the organization, sort of falls by the wayside. And that, this is the reality, but I think it's good to look at the reality. So how do we help you all focus your marketing? And the first thing I would do is let's bring development back to the table. Say to development, okay, who are your major donor groups that you would like to target more in 2025? I would, for a lot of you, make a list of one, or it could be three. So in this case, I thought, well, we definitely need some more monthly donors, maybe some more foundations, and some high net worth individuals. So once we decide which groups we really want to attack over the course of the year, then we're going to start to think about what the content is that they need and want to read or listen to or watch. One of the ways that I find is best to work with organizations on how to really back into this topic is to really think about how Google has affected the way that we think and we do things. So Google has one client, and that client is anyone who writes a question in this bar. And our jobs as marketers is to help Google help that person find us. And the way that we can be doing that is to think about the questions that they would put in there that would lead them to our website and our content. So what would a monthly donor ask Google in order to reach your organization? Take a minute to think about that. What are some of the questions that a monthly donor, if you want to engage more monthly donors, might ask Google? I don't know if anyone wants to throw one in the chat or go off mute and give their thoughts on this. Oops. Ending hunger in Maine, yes. Supporting education for Indigenous girls in Guatemala. Nonprofit resources. How do I connect other funders in Maine? That's a really good one. I like that. Yeah, that's from the Maine, from Emily from the Maine Philanthropy Foundation. Volunteer. What are volunteer opportunities in New Hampshire? So how can education support Indigenous girls in Guatemala? These are really, this is where my brain starts to really think, and I start to have fun about what are these questions that would go in there. So I decided to make a little fictitious organization, and the organization that whoops, I lost my screen here. Hold on, guys. I did it. Hold on, everybody. Where did
I'll chime in, Sarah, while you're getting the slide deck back on track. One of the things I was going to say is I find it really interesting. We work at Wright Collective right now. We have a couple environmental groups, and folks have been really surprised that the main way people are finding them is when they actually Google for gardening and landscaping tips, as well as places to volunteer. So I wanted to also lift up that came up in the chat. We see that a lot. Like, I want to volunteer to help local families. I want my company to volunteer and plant trees or to run a food drive. We see a lot of that actually coming in. So I think that's always really fascinating. The volunteer one is one of the top things that gets Googled.
Thank you, Alyssa. Yeah. sort of along that line, I created this fictitious animal shelter, and was thinking about what a monthly donor might want, a potential monthly donor might want to Google. And some of the things I came up with were, how do I get rid of fleas? What are games that I play with cats? How do I integrate a new pet into my home? What is the best time to adopt? So these are questions that a monthly donor might ask. Some of them, by the way, will relate to the shelter directly. Some of them might not, but they would still be within sort of the realm of what a monthly donor would look for when they're Googling. The other thing I will say too is when you think about these monthly donors, I like to put names on them. So when we work with clients, I'd say to them, okay, well, tell me, what are their names? And what do you mean, what are their names? There's lots of monthly donors there, or there's no monthly donors. I said, well, okay, give me a couple of names that you think should be here. And they said, well, actually, Adrian and Charlie, they're monthly donors. And I say, okay, let's make a small list. Because once you put faces to this group, you really get to start to picture who they are and what some of those questions are that they're asking. And then you can put it into a calendar. And this is sort of, I will say, I realize this is a lot of stuff in one slide. I'm trying to stuff it in, and I apologize if it comes off a little bit too much, but I want you to keep it simple. Pick some of those topics and slot them into month one. Keep those special dates, like is it Valentine's Day coming up? You want to make sure you know that those are on the calendars as well. And plan between 3 and 6 months out and just leave it at that. And then at the beginning of January, look at your priorities and say, yes, we're going to talk about fleas and we're going to talk about adopting a new pet. And we're going to leave it at that because we have other program ideas that need to come out this month. We have volunteer programs that we want to discuss. So we're going to leave it at fleas and adopting a new pet, and that's it. And then when anyone else comes to you and says, I have big ideas, you say, great, let's put them on the February big idea list. We'll evaluate them at the beginning of the month, and let's keep on track for January. So you want to be strategic but flexible. Obviously, again, when things happen, we need to react to them, but I would put those reactions into the are they urgent and important bucket, then you react right away. Otherwise, move them down to next month. So that's really protecting your calendar, and then allowing you to reevaluate each month and to track. Okay, so how do we help our marketers? If you have a specific role that's a standalone marketer or a team of marketers, I want you to really think about, or if it's part of you, which a lot of you are, that's part of you, what are your goals for this role? How will you measure success? Who is on the leadership team or the board that will be the marketer's advocate? And I think it's really important that when you identify who that person is, that you say to them, your job is to help this person be successful. And they take that really seriously because it's not for that person to generate more ideas. It's actually to help them be the gatekeeper and allow the person to have success throughout the year. How will you guide this person through all the bullet points that's on their to-do list? And is there a marketing calendar that you can stick with? And with that, I'm going to move to some quick marketing tips. So first, people follow humans more than brands, really. And while we do find ourselves following brands, I think if you start to look at who you follow, you'll see that you actually are more apt to follow humans. So again, going back to this nonprofit leaders as thought leaders, We really want to identify who those leaders are in our teams. Are they executive directors? Are they board members? Are they clinicians or service providers? And then be realistic about what it is how we're positioning them. What are their strengths and weaknesses? You know, Alyssa, you're a good speaker, so we're going to try and get you out there and speak a lot. I think you're not a bad writer, but it's hard to get you to sit down and write, whereas I can get you out there to speak a lot. So we're going to do that. We're going to double down on what's really your strength area. And be realistic. Okay. So Alyssa, that means we're going to get you out to speak 3 or 4 times this year. Not more than that, not less, but that's what we're going to do. It's realistic. It's what we can handle. And I think for nonprofits, a lot of the sizes of organizations that you all manage, being realistic is very important to the marketing success. And what is the platform? Is it speaking? Is it writing? Is it video? Can we get a volunteer to help with this too? If it's video, you know, maybe a volunteer comes in once a month and records a bunch of video with you. And so then it's done and you can go off, do your thing, and you can line up those videos to go out throughout the month. This is another bucket where I find is very difficult for marketers. And these are the strategic marketing priorities. So what are strategic marketing priorities? They are a new website, new logos, a new CRM, new branding. I'm sure that many of you have these on your to-do list right now. And so you're thinking, how is it that I'm going to get this stuff done? Well, the truth is, and I was speaking to a client in December who said, the marketer has too much on their plate. So I think they were they were like the head of one of the services. And she said to me, so I'm going to do the website and I'm going to do it in January. And I sort of said, okay, yeah, I'm sure you will. But as Alyssa knows, we've been trying to redo parts of our website for a couple of months now. And these things are not urgent. And while they might seem important, you need to make them realistic. So what I suggest is that if you can live with any of these for the next year, then do so. I mean, if your board comes to you and says, we need a new logo, really do you? Or is it just a fun activity to do? People love going through the logo experience of redesigning a logo. And they're like, we're going to do it in 6 weeks. It always takes months and months and months. So I would suggest that if you can live with some of these things and focus on marketing and some content and driving donations, which is really what all of your bigger problem is, that's where I would put your focus energy. And if you need to do this, then do it, but slate it in and say, okay, here's the deal. In January, we're going to do the new service page. In February, we're going to do the new bios page, about us page. In March, we're going to do the new whatever page, and be realistic and create a plan, and then do it in bits and pieces. Okay, email. So I love email. And the thing is that it's still here. About 10 years ago, we all thought email was going to be gone and we wouldn't be talking about email. And yet I find that the vast majority of nonprofits communicate through email, and the vast majority of responses are coming through email. And the great thing about email is you own your list. It literally is the only marketing asset, list-wise, the other is your website, that you own. You do not own your Facebook list. You do not own your Instagram list. You do not own your TikTok list or whatever else list. And we all know that come tomorrow, those lists might be gone, but email you own. And people are still using it and they love it. So I say you double down on email. Take a moment to review your 2024 email data. What did people open? What did they click through most? That'll help you to guide you over what you might need in the coming year. Be consistent with timing. If you have a quarterly email, always send it out in the same time in the quarter. If it's monthly, try and send it out the same week, the same day within the week if you can. And if it's weekly, then, always on Fridays or whatever that is. Be, careful of the holidays, obviously, but be consistent when you can be. And I think this is both important for the viewers. They get used to expecting when your mailing list is, or when your email is coming. But it's also good for me as a marketer to, once you take me off of that consistency, then I just can't keep up with it. So knowing that Fridays is the day that I send out the email, then I'll get it done. And I think that's really important. So use email with content and education as much as you can. You need to draw me in. You need to educate me. And I need to open it. So how are you using your subject lines? What is the content that's bringing me in? Again, these are not solicitations. Sometimes the solicitations are mixed in with the marketing, and that's great if you can do them both. But you really want to consider how you're going to draw me in, and I'm going to give you a tool in a second to help you with that. Double opt-ins. For those of you that use double opt-ins, you shouldn't. You should get rid of them because the chances that someone is going to get the double opt-in and decide at that last moment not to sign up for your mailing list is pretty large. We've seen the data on that. So, and there's no law that says you have to use a double opt-in, so just don't. Some tools for email that I use on a daily basis, this bottom one is called subjectline.com. Every time we write a subject line for an email, I put it through this little tool here, and it gives me like 6 or 7 better subject lines and why. This is owned by this guy, Jay Schwellenson, who do this, not that. He has this podcast that is 10 minutes. It's really funny. He's really goofy. I really like him a lot. And he has taught me more about email than anyone, really. He's a genius. It's all free. So do these things because they take like 10 seconds to do, to copy your subject line, dump it in there, and see if you can come up with a better one and why. The other is Ann Hanley. She's a writer, content writer, writes a lot of emails and writes a lot of blogs. She does a bi-weekly Sunday morning email that's both fun and I enjoy getting it. And again, consistency. I know every other Sunday I'm going to get that email from her, and I enjoy reading it with my coffee. So, and I learn a lot from both of them. Moving to social media. So this is an area I will say firsthand that I am not a social media expert. I know enough of it because of being a generalist to get in trouble, but I also know that you don't own it, that we know that Meta could disappear tomorrow, that X could be gone. And so we do have to be careful about putting too many ducks in any one of these areas. It is a necessary tool, unfortunately or fortunately. As I look at a lot of your social media feeds, I see that a lot of your, in most cases, most of you have the greatest followings on Facebook. So for us to say we're not going to be on Facebook because Meta is now, going through some of these strange iterations that we don't need to get into today, but For me to tell an organization, yes, you should just drop off of Facebook is a really difficult thing for me to do because that's where your following is. That's where your people are. And you kind of need to be there. So what I like to tell people at small organizations, and this is what we do at Wright Collective, is that we have a pretty um, uh, I don't know how to describe this, but a pretty blanket approach to social media. We send the same things, different sizes, obviously, to all of the different social media platforms that we use. So whether it's Instagram, Facebook, X, Blue Sky, we do a little bit on YouTube, but not a lot. It's the same content that goes everywhere. And that's unfortunately the way it has to be because we're a small organization and that's all we can manage. But when Alyssa came to me and said, should we consider being on Blue Sky? I said, okay, Blue Sky is a different format. It's a much more engaging format. We're not going to be able to be on there every day responding and reacting. We can be there. We can be present, same way that we're present on the other platforms. But, until it's something we can spend more time on, this is the strategy that we're going to pick. Meta again is the same, and I would say the same for Instagram and Facebook is, if you want to move away from them, then consider what your losses are. And if you can find a way to move your followers to Blue Sky or another platform, then great. Otherwise, you may need to stay there for a time if you have to. YouTube, however, if you're doing TikTok videos right now, I would also be doing them on YouTube. If TikTok disappears, then I think YouTube is a great platform. It's owned by Google. And we're really seeing an increase in Google users. I'm sorry, in YouTube users. Those are my social media quick tips, and you guys can ask me some more questions later if you want. Again, I throw this one in here because I know you're going to ask about it. What should we be doing with AI? And so this is from Neil Patel. If your organization is doing any kind of Google Ads or SEO, follow Neil Patel. He's amazing. But I pulled this off of his site just to show you that really, and this is not for nonprofits, this is for all organizations, really where I see the best possibilities in the automation of tasks and the content creation. But my suggestion to all of you is pretty specific. If you're not using ChatGPT, start using it right now to write every one of your solicitations and blogs. I know how we do it here. I write a terrible blog. I put it into ChatGPT and I want to send it flowers. I love it so much for how it cleans up everything that I do. So I'm so grateful to you, ChatGPT, for all that you do. If that's all you do when you use AI tools, then great. Some of your platforms will have some new fun things to do within them that we're starting to see, MailChimp and some of the CRMs using AI. Test them out, see how they go, but don't get mired in them. And lastly, if you really want to up your game, maybe you add an automation into your CRM where if someone makes a donation, then 4 weeks later, they get an email that says, hey, become a monthly donor. I mean, if that's all you do, then great. But again, I think there's so many of these tools out there that it becomes a little bit overwhelming. Oh, I'm just looking at the chat. Yes, I love ChatGPT. I mean, honestly, Michelle, I want to send it flowers. It's like my best friend. It's amazing to me how much. Okay. So, as a marketer, your job is really to protect your priorities. And again, to be flexible, but to really have the self-confidence to say, thank you for these ideas, but remember that we discussed this is the priority for January. So we're going to continue through this and then we'll reevaluate later. I find that most of the times when you do that, that big idea just sort of dissipates and is gone. Or you're like, you know what, it's a really good idea. Let's put it in for April. And then you prioritize it appropriately. Where'd I go? So lastly, a couple just sort of last things before we get into Q&A. I love this. Alyssa created this program called Strategy Sessions with clients. It's a 2-hour strategy session that we work with you. We have a 30-minute call beforehand, a 30-minute debrief afterwards, and it really helps you to take one tiny little subject matter and double down on it, come up with some actionable steps, and off you go. It's relatively inexpensive. We can do them on any one of these subject matters. I've seen Allison do them on grants management, Alyssa do them on major gifts. I can do it on marketing. So, if you're like, oh, I really just want to jumpstart something this year, this is a great way to do it. We love doing these with clients because they are somewhat reasonable. So feel free to reach out to Andrea on info@Wright Collective. And then lastly, our spring webinar, we think we know what the topic is, but we're going to hold off just a little bit longer to think it through a little bit more, but make sure you're on our mailing list. Most of you are, and you'll hear about it. So with that, I want to thank you, and I will turn it back to Alyssa and open it up to all of you. I'm going to take this off so I can see your faces now. Bring it back over here.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. So we have about 10 minutes left for Q&A. And I just want to acknowledge and honor folks who messaged me in the chat about getting access to this recording and slide deck. So that will definitely go out in an email after today. So that's coming your way. I also had 2 people message me about their training and onboarding new folks in marketing within their organization that are a little more maybe junior or entry level new to the space. So yeah, please do consider, Sarah's had a couple sessions last fall with newer folks to donor communications and marketing. And it really helped their year-end appeal to be not just asking all the time. Right. So that's really important too. We tend to, one of the things we get back a lot in development audits is we only hear from you when you're proving that you used our money well or that you need more money. And so there's a lot of things in between that we need to be communicating around. So I'll open the floor up to questions. We've got 10 more minutes together. Does anybody want to unmute or raise your hand and chime on in? What's coming up for you today as you think about your marketing journey of 2025? Anyone have a question? Also good to share reflections if anything stood out for you today, in particular, that you need to really start thinking about.
I have a question. My name is Erin, and we are a kind of quick growing organization, and we're very scrappy and have grown kind of rapidly over the past 3 or 4 years, and we tend to write a lot of like personalized email from the executive director, sometimes from the development director, myself. But our executive director is pretty apprehensive about using like constant contact because of she's worried that things will go to people's promotion inboxes, or she's kind of concerned that people won't see it or won't open it or it won't feel personal. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on, like, is it always best to send emails directly from like an individual within the organization? Is it okay to use constant contact? And maybe what is the best way to like make sure that people are receiving their emails into their inbox?
So Erin, a great question. So yeah, it's easier for people to get your emails if you send them directly. That's not always doable, as you know, in a growing organization like yours. You're not going to be able to do that all the time. The big mail organizations like MailChimp and Constant Contact, one of the things that they do really well is they really take care of their tools, their deliverability tools. And so their job is to deliver as many of your emails to your receiver as possible. And all of the email providers do that. If you don't use a provider that does, there's an add-on that we actually use that you can get in to make sure that you're getting better deliverability. I mean, you're right. Not everything's going to go directly into an inbox, but you're going to have to balance, like, okay, I can't keep sending individual emails all the time to, how can I reach as many people as I can in a shorter period of time? And I trust those organizations. One of the things that they will do is they'll make you not just dump big lists of emails into the system, because they'll get in trouble if you're not a good email user. So they're careful about how their clients use their tools to increase the overall deliverability of their entire client base. So great question. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll just share too, Erin. Sometimes it can be, I'm going to name that Sara and I have that relationship where I'm constantly throwing shiny objects at her, because it's just part of who I am. And we have this really good dynamic around the big list and all of that. But I also think with some of that management of it, I've had to get over the uncomfortable feeling as someone who likes to literally like personally email everybody and reference all the little things going on in their life and how much I love them and hold them and want to be sitting with them drinking coffee and talking for 6 hours, that things need to be automated. Like your community gets to a certain size too, where I just had to get comfortable with like the automatic emails going out that say, hey, Alyssa, hey, everybody, it's Alyssa. I'm in New York next week. If you want to meet with me for lunch, click here. That can be really uncomfortable sometimes culturally too, when you bring it into a founder-led or longtime ED-led organization. And so they just have to get over it. So if there's anybody that, you need me to talk to and say, get over it, there's other things that need to be happening in the world. You can mail everybody a nice warm hug and have a walk on the beach or in the park with them at another time. It is sort of a cultural dynamic too, when you start using more of these tools for marketing. And it can be tough, but I just wanted to name that because sometimes it's that piece.
Yeah, thank you, Alyssa.
So Chelsea has a question, well, more of a comment about segmentation versus donors and customers. And this is a hard one. We're all, us included, small organizations. So segmentation of messaging can be tough, but you can do it in some different ways. Like, first of all, I think it's okay just to get out, like if today's message is to this segment and not to that segment, it's okay. People understand that you're speaking to a broader group, and it's better to continue to speak to them than to hold back and not speak to a certain segment. You can be deliberate and you can, in your newsletter, say, message to funders, message to providers, message to, swimming instructors, whatever it is that your organization does. And then you're training them to be very careful of where they look in the newsletter. And they know that on Friday, when they get their newsletter, they're going to scroll down to their section and they're going to read their section. And they might glance at the others, which is good because they're all there and they can see, oh, good. I'm glad that they're looking for volunteers. And I'm glad that they're trying to build a better playground and they need, a swing set if someone can donate that or whatever. But I think, we have to focus on what we can get done as small organizations and calling out that we're gonna message you all, but it's gonna be, these different messages is one way to do that. I hope that's helpful, Chelsea. Oh, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Emily. I'm at the
Hi,
Maine
Emily.
Philanthropy Center. So we've been pretty consistent about our email communication schedule over the last couple of years. And I've been working with my CEO. We're thinking about expanding that and having a little bit more frequent emails, which has brought up some anxiety for us about, oh, we're going to overwhelm people, things like that. I'm wondering what like metrics you'd be using or like where what indications you would get that, oh, maybe we should start pulling back like too many unsubscribes, but like kind of where that level would be of like where you would notice and maybe pull back.
So, Emily, first of all, thank you for your question. And unsubscribes is the thing that I want you all not to be afraid of because it is where people say thank you, but no thank you. And it's better than spam, because what we don't want is for people to put us into their spam box, in their junk box. That actually dings our deliverability in the long term. So it's okay if people unsubscribe. I think really thinking through, maybe I don't know, do you have a monthly or a weekly?
Depending on which each communication is monthly, but then depending on who you are, you might be getting something more weekly or like bi-weekly.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if people aren't reading it, that's where I would be concerned. It's less about the unsubscribes, although if you see a huge amount, then that's a problem, but and more about nobody's opening it, nobody's reading it, what's going on here. Truthfully, for Wright Collective, our problem is that we do a monthly and then we do sort of extra ones. And the monthly one is like this long. It's too big. It's too overwhelming. I'm sure you're all like, yes, we get Alyssa's message and I don't get through half of it. So we were thinking about splitting it up into more bite-sizable chunks. So instead of once a month, you get it twice a month and you can read it quicker and you get the content that we really want you to get that's way down at the bottom. So yeah, hopefully that's helpful.
Thank you.
Oh, Chelsea, this is another good question about newsletter open rates. I mean, it's not specific. It's organization by organization, I would say, and you want to look over the long term. So it's not one newsletter, it's over the course of the year and really seeing if, that's what I would do for 2024. I would look at your overall open rate and I'd say, okay, how can we up this up in the first quarter? What were some of the things that they really enjoyed reading in 2024 that we can redo or, capitalize on for 2025? What was what kind of content was that? And that would be how I would sort of look at those rates. I think it's hard to compare your rate to another organization's rate because everybody's a little bit different and their mailing lists are all sort of so different. I hope that's helpful, Chelsea. Mara, no, you don't use an add-on for constant content. So for constant contact, for MailChimp, for the big ones, and you can check this, you can ask your organization and you can look at it. They're fine. They have their own back-end deliverability. If for some reason you're using a CRM that also has an email tool within it, then I'd want to check and make sure what their deliverability tool is, and you might need to get the add-on for that. Okay.
Great. I'm mindful of our time together today because it's 1 o'clock Eastern. So I don't know if anyone needs to leave immediately. We can probably stay on for 5 more minutes, Sarah, if there are any other remaining questions. And I just, for folks that need to sign off, just want to say we're sort of waiting to see, I think, Kim, you put a message in the chat, what the first 100 days of the new federal administration look like, and also sort of how that impacts all the communities that we serve. So we will have more specific content, but it's going to be super relevant and hopefully pretty actionable, especially for those of you who serve populations that aren't sure how things might change and how funding might flow. So just stay tuned for that. Please do reach out if you want to book a strategy session with Sarah or myself or another member of the team. I have to tell you, it's really great sometimes to do these with development committees or marketing committees too. So if you have a committee that could use a little bit more support to actually make a work plan for this year, and you're not sitting in August going, what did they actually get done year to date? We're happy to put work plans together and things like that for your volunteer groups. And with that, I'll hand it back over to you, Sarah, if anybody else has any questions, and feel free to unmute or show your video and wave goodbye or message us in the chat. Good to be with you all.
Thank you, everyone. I really appreciated presenting to you all.
Bye. Thanks, Erin.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Chelsea. Bye, Maria. Bye, Michelle.